Hey, what's happening, guys? I'm Chad,
And I'm Maple
and Maple just got to watch Big Fish today.
for the first time.
What'd you think?
I think I waited way too long to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love this movie.
You've seen the bizarre.
Danny DeVito. It got me at the end. So anyone who goes and watches the reaction. Oh, I'm unwell. Chad's figured out what movies are working that I love, that I'm like we're starting to narrow it down.
Damn, kid.
Yeah, damn.
So the movie is a adaptation of a book, and it's
Okay.
Tim Burton. Are you real familiar with Tim Burton's work at all?
Okay, so I'm familiar with Tim Burton and like an art style that
Yeah.
goes with Tim Burton.
Sure.
But I haven't really watched any Tim Burton movies, which is funny because in the reaction I mentioned that the set or the style and theme of art or how things are so theatrical almost. It feels like watching like what should be a musical or like
Yeah.
a theater production,
Yeah.
but it's a movie
Well,
without like the theatery feeling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. That's one of my big takeaways with the movie is that it is, in essence, kind of a story itself, roughly being told from a man who is telling his wife how hard it was growing up with this, his father.
Yeah.
And his father, being a kind of larger than life figure who told tall tales, big fish stories, right? What I think was kind of unique about this story is that most movies would either have had a real gritty kind of realistic feel to it, like you do with The Sun, or would have had this very fanciful kind of, Tim Burton-esque feel that we had this very, mythical with Ewan McGregor, as a young guy. Cutting back and forth between the stark reality and that, I think, was what really makes this movie feel special. It's
Yeah.
like, it feels so grounded and real and kind of dour when we're with the sun.
Well,
who
and
is-
then it fully transitions by the end.
right?
Where, yeah.
And that's what is so poetic, I think,
Dad, you're in no condition.
Get that wheelchair.
is that
Yeah.
there's actually a really good combination at the end with those two, which first off is already beautiful poetry of
Yeah.
having the son who was rejecting it the whole time and kind of hated it growing up and feeling alienated from his father, and now at the end, like him not only kind of accepting his father but also like finishing the story with him, like really delving in. It's so perfect because it's kind of half him and half his dad.
Half his dad, yeah.
Like if that car chase scene took place with his dad, it probably would have been crazy. It would have been like
Yeah.
monkeys in a clown car. But it's also much more kind of hammy, like the giant knocking over the car and stuff, like than it would be with like the sun. So that's like kind of a beautiful way to kind of
Kind of,
showcase that
yeah,
they've merged in
bring
some
them
kind of
together.
way. Right.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's like this movie also has an element of comedy to
Oh
it.
yeah.
That like she's like the lonely cat lady.
Mhm.
Like how they make her be alone, but she has a bunch of cats.
Yeah. Also, did you catch Miley Cyrus cameo?
Dude, I did.
Yeah,
Okay,
right, isn't
I
that
was
crazy?
like, is that Miley Cyrus?
Edward, don't. She does.
It literally looks like little Miley Cyrus. I said that. I caught a couple people because Jessica Lange, I know
Yeah.
who she is. Jessica Lange! Dude, go off, queen. She's the best. Bane's lady from Batman.
Oh yeah. And Inception.
Yeah.
Mary Cotillard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could gut that fish.
Danny DeVito! And I don't really know. I haven't watched Danny DeVito in anything other than I know that he's a meme. I know that the show is really big and there's like memes and stuff that circulate every now and then. So
yeah.
I think the one that is like he's like I'm the trash man.
Or
And then
the-
I just see pictures of him walking his wiener dogs a lot. That
Right.
circulates a lot on the internet. Danny DeVito is a werewolf. I didn't want to see that. And then I saw his butt cheeks.
Yeah.
I was
Hell yeah.
like, I did not want to see Danny.
on
DeVito.
on TV. It's very like it's poetry. It's very
Yeah.
beautiful. Like even that, like when we have his actual funeral and all the people show
Yeah,
up and you
they're
can
all
see
there.
that there's kind of this half truth. It's like, yeah, he knew twins. They weren't Siamese twins, but I don't know if
But-
you're allowed to say that anymore. Conjoined twins.
Conjoined twins. Yeah.
And then like the giant guy is very tall. He has gigantism, but he's not like a, cartoon giant. He's not taller than a house. But what I love though is like, because there's some truth in like, you're so enchanted. That's a good word too. Like the movie's very enchanting.
Yeah.
So you're very enchanted watching, like hanging out with Ewan McGregor, back when he was young. But then it's like, there's this bitterness where you're like, yeah, but I get where the kid's coming from. Where we felt like I never really knew my dad.
Yeah, or like every time you try to have a serious moment with him,
Right.
it has to be this big story.
Exactly right.
I saw an iceberg once They were hauling it down to Texas for drinking water.
Dad,
What?
Or like he said, you shouldn't have asked the question because people want to answer questions. You should have started with the thing about icebergs' eggs.
the thing about icebergs is you only see 10%. The other 90% is below the water where you can't see it.
So like part of me felt for him, but then another part of it too is true that it's like that's just your dad. Like
It seems like almost in trying to be this larger than life character, like for his kid and kind of be like a hero to his kid, he ended up alienating his kid, you know, from
Yeah.
his son, you know. And when he says like, you know, it's one thing when I'm 5, he's like, I was like 15 and I believe these things longer than I, you know, care
Yeah.
to. So also then you're going to feel like duped and embarrassed and you're going to take that resentment and put it on the person who you feel like gaslit you basically, you know, when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And it's also very interesting because I think that his dad also doesn't super feel like Ewan McGregor. Like Ewan McGregor's character feels so soft and friendly and warm,
Yeah.
but his dad is also a little bit like whenever he does try to put a little pressure on his dad snaps. Like his
Yeah.
dad is absolutely kind of harsh with him.
I've been nothing but myself since the dad was born. And if you can't see that, it's your failing, not mine.
You know, and it's like, well, where did this guy come from?
well,
Like,
yeah, and
Ewan
like I
McGregor
don't know
wasn't
where
like
he's
that.
like, that's how you feel about me. Like that's those are your feelings. Like
Right,
and
yeah.
he just like completely like
So it's so I think that ending is cool because it kind of connects to that as well of like they were there but they're not exactly what, so it's like, so he's not exactly, you know, Ewan McGregor either. Like all of
Yeah.
that is definitely kind of a little heightened, and there was like a complicated real man who was here. So they added a lot of cool kind of human elements to a movie that could have just been a little bit of a vapid kind of children's like fun,
yeah, fun.
you know, story. The whole thing could have just taken place in like the silly, you know, old world.
Yeah.
And
like,
so
yeah, and the fantasy. Yeah. I
Like that's a
don't know.
Tim Burton movie on its own. So
Yeah.
it was very cool, I think, to kind of do this, you know, little mixture between the two.
Yeah.
You become what you always were.
Big
A very big fish.
Guys, I'm dying, dude.
Another really cool little thing I didn't notice the first time, but revisiting it, I noticed is that he is a journalist, the son.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some kind of poetry that they're trying to sneak in there as well, where it's like his father told stories and he told these kind of big fake stories and he got into journalism. So he tells stories too, but they're all built around having to be like the truth and like
truth,
the
yeah.
hard facts. And I
He's
have to go
very
investigate.
analytical. Yeah.
Mhm. So it's like the fantastic father and then the super analytical, you know, son. It's more poetic that he got into like a similar field. Like I'm also going to professionally like tell stories.
Yeah.
But there's still rebellion in like the kind I'm going to tell. I'm going to kind of almost like I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
Like you did it wrong and I'm going to do it, you
Like
know, the way you're
I'm
supposed
only
to.
telling
The
facts.
truth,
Yeah, the
you know?
truth, the
Right.
hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
I tell stories.
you tell lies, Dad. You tell amusing lies.
So it's interesting because it simultaneously is a following after my father and also a rebellion at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's like the perfect job for him. Like that's so good. You know, they could have had
Yeah.
him be like an accountant and he could have been like, I deal in facts and numbers. I'm the opposite of my father. But I love that there's kind of like, it's a little bit of both. It's almost like a homage to my father and also a rebellion at the same time.
Yeah.
That's just really beautiful. So
And he like, I don't know, he's like always thinking that there has to be some specific reason as to why. And it seems like there was, but it was never as bad as he thought it was.
yeah, I
Like,
thought
his
there's like a
dad-
whole nother family or something.
Yeah, like his dad was never, you know, like the love that his parents shared was real
Mm-hmm.
and true. And
Well,
like,
it almost feels like, you know, if this was a different movie, he would be what's classified as like, I think Kurt Vonnegut would call like the traveling angel, which this is like Mary Poppins.
oh, okay, yeah.
Everyone lives in a crappy world and this angel perfect person shows up, fixes everything, and then
Yeah.
leaves. And that's kind of who he is from the perspective of everyone else in the old stories. So it's like, well, what is it like when Mary Poppins is like your mom and she wasn't with you because she was effing around with these kids all the time, you
Yeah.
know? So I think it's kind of a cool, like, let's look at the fairy tale from like the other kind of real
other
world
side,
yeah, home perspective.
and how you would actually feel.
It's like there was kind of his dad like gave up too much of himself to everyone around him and he was like very involved deeply in all these other people's lives, and yeah, it ended up costing time.
Yeah.
And so now you have this kid who's like, yeah, but I was here the whole time, like what about me, you know? So
You're embarrassing yourself, Dad. You just don't see it.
it's doing a cool thing that I think most art should do, which is like using heightened reality and archetypes and metaphor to describe some very real things
Real
that we do
things,
go
yeah.
through. And that's what makes you connect to it, you know?
Yeah.
Because if the whole story was just about like I met a giant one time and then there was, I turned into a huge fish, it's like there's no,
And there were jumping spiders.
and there were jumping spiders.
I lost my shoes.
And the circus was involved, then yeah, then there'd just be kind of like, okay, this is just some whimsical whatever. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, what makes it really, those elements are what make it very personable.
Well, and even just the ad libs on like life lessons or I don't know, like quips that they add in.
Mhm.
It makes you think about a lot of different things throughout the track of the movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
And that's how it happens.
Exactly.
So would you recommend Big Fish?
I would recommend Big Fish.
Oh yeah.
Everyone should watch Big Fish.
Yeah, I'm glad we covered that one.
Mandatory.
I guess I would recommend it too because I did recommend it to you, so fair enough. But I know, I agree. I think it was slept on a little, and they handle some well-tread territory in new and unique ways, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I've seen the half of the movie that follows the son and the half of the movie that follows the father, like
Yeah.
individually. So this was the first time I've seen someone really kind of put them together
Put it
like
together.
that.
That's true. Because generally you're just following really one person or another and watching them just figure it out.
And the tone of a whole movie would normally be kind of that more serious tone.
I don't know. That's surprising to me because also in terms of just cinematography, I always love talking about that. Like
Yeah.
I love a lot of the visuals of this
Oh, yeah.
movie and how things were filmed.
It's very Tim Burton, so we'll do some more because I think,
Heck
if
yeah.
you're into that,
I would
then
love that.
he has
I
a very
love art
consistent style.
and like like
Well,
whimsical things or things that
right.
feel just like they're real but they're bigger than what they are.
Absolutely
Like,
right. He's very his biggest style influences in my opinion are like gothic and very whimsical. German expressionism is a huge thing he references all the time. And German expressionism was, very early cinema, and it wasn't about like going for realism. It was about trying to use like set design and stuff to try to express the emotion of what was happening in the scene. So it's
Yeah.
okay that your house is like completely tilted to represent that things are in disorder,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But yeah, guys. So that's Big Fish.
awesome. Heck yeah. Yeah, I love
I
this
like it.
movie. Yeah, I liked it.
I was Chad.
Did you say was? I was Maple.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We love you.